Why successful men who own Bitcoin stay single. Okay, guys, so back with another video. Let's get right into it. And the problem is that a lot of successful Bitcoiners, guys who bought Bitcoin, invest in Bitcoin, the reason why they want to stay single is because they want to protect their purchasing power for the rest of their lives and have the ability to pass down that increasing purchasing power to their family and to keep their family wealthy to build generational wealth. And this is something that a lot of, in particular, women do not understand because, I've been looking at my channel analytics and almost all of you guys watching my videos are men. So most of you guys who own Bitcoin, at least on this channel, are male, and you want to protect your purchasing power. You want to build wealth in your family and to keep that wealth moving down to generation and generation to make lives easier for your family and your extended family for decades and decades to come. And that's just simply impossible if you're getting into long term relationships and marriages that fail and end up in divorce, which is disastrous for wealth building. And to kind of describe how this happens, let's talk about the marriage wheel. So, the marriage wheel is something coined by, shout out to Coach Greg Adams, CGA. He's a pretty popular YouTuber. And he actually built an infographic of what happens. But basically, there's 5 phases. So, the first phase is the connection phase. So, that's simply like the honeymoon period where relationships start new and people start enjoying each other's company and time, and emotions are high, and the intimacy is good, and that's kind of like, I would say, the main peak of the relationship. And then the second phase is the investment phase. That's usually where the guy ends up buying a house with the woman, maybe thinking about having children. They start making long-term plans into their marriage, and that's usually the phase where a guy's like, okay, I want to build something with this woman. I want to invest a lot of my time, energy, money, and attention into her. And that's usually kind of the area where most men, at least modern men, fail. And that's kind of like the countdown to the end of these marriages that end up in divorce. Then the third phase is the bait and switch phase. So that's where things like the intimacy dries up. Arguments are started easily. There can be, a potential cheating or infidelity in the relationship where or the woman might do something like gain weight into her marriage, let her looks, let her let self go, don't really present the same um, physical emotional connection that you provided in the first phase, which is the connection phase. And then the fourth phase of a lot of modern marriages is the disengagement phase. That's a lot of times when one partner moves out of the house, or people stop seeing each other, or there's a separation period, as they call it in a lot of marriages. And then in the fifth period, of course, is things like there can be things like actual divorce. Attorneys are hired and things like that. Separation of assets. That's usually the 5 stages. So the connection phase, the investment phase, the bait and switch phase, the disengagement phase, and then the re-entry into the marriage market or dating relationships again. And it's a cycle, just like the Bitcoin halving cycle is a cycle. This is a cycle in a lot of modern relationships. And a lot of successful men that own Bitcoin don't want to put up with that. Okay. And it's simply because the difference is when you have Bitcoin, you have a very low time preference. What I mean is low time preference. You're not in a rush to get things done. You're not in a hurry. You're delaying your gratification to the future so that you can increase your purchasing power and have more abundance in your life. Not just financial abundance, but time abundance. Okay, because Bitcoin gives you time, it gives you control of your time. If you're saving in hard money, if you're saving in a currency that isn't debased or devalued by governments, you are allowed to spend your time as you see fit throughout as you get older and older in your life, because you've preserved your purchasing power, you preserved your work energy. And when we talk about modern relationships, getting married and stuff like that, a lot of modern women have a high time preference. Okay, a lot of these modern marriages rarely last, 5 to 10 years, and people break up so easily. And it's just that with these high time preference marriages, a lot of successful men who own Bitcoin are just saying no. And that's just simply because, a lot of successful men have worked really hard to build themselves up. Okay. And in my journey, I spent 17, 18 years working online, managing websites, becoming a WordPress developer, getting experience at affiliate marketing and things like that, learning how to drive traffic to different platforms. And it was almost 2 decades of my work where I ended up selling my business in April 2024 and putting most of the proceeds into Bitcoin. I had also already had Bitcoin previously. I got started my Bitcoin journey in 2019, but I really decided to kind of just put all the chips on the table in 2024 during the previous halving event, the 2024 halving event. And that's just because I really thought that at this time, it's more important for me to provide solutions to so many of the common modern day problems that we face in society by preaching the gospel of Bitcoin rather than just, trying to make another dollar as an affiliate marketer, or trying to, drive traffic to a website, especially when AI tools like ChatGPT, made it so much more difficult to rank a website online. And it's just that when you're successful, when you built yourself up, when you've done well in your career, when you have a substantial savings, you might have purchased a house, or a condo, you have the car that you want to drive, you kind of have everything that you need in life. Why would you risk losing all of that to get involved in a potential marriage that could completely be destroyed at a drop of a hat? And with the modern court system, it's usually the woman gets the benefit of the doubt. There's no fault, divorce in most U.S. states, practically all of them, and just things don't last because a lot of modern women have a high time preference. Now, of course, there's even risk in just even being in a situationship, or even just a long-term relationship. They have a lot of crazy laws out there, or where guys can get caught up where you live with a woman for a certain amount of time. It's considered a common law marriage. There are certain states that have that law. And even the fact there's the risk of domestic violence. Okay, if you live with a girlfriend or something like that, she can say you abused her. She can say you guys were fighting. And a lot of men end up, getting kicked out of their own houses or apartments, even when they're not married to women. The most recent example I can think of is what happened to Xavier Worthy. This guy's an NFL player for the Kansas City Chiefs. Went off in the Super Bowl. Went off for 8 catches, over 150 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Against the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl. He ends up getting arrested in his house that he's basically paying all the bills for because his alleged girlfriend said he physically abused her. So, it's very risky for successful men in general to get in relationships in modern day society, but it's extremely risky for successful men that own Bitcoin. And the simple reason is because Bitcoin is going to increase your purchasing power substantially. And usually, the more wealth and the more purchasing power you have more abundance in mate choice, which means you can choose better women, younger women over time. So let's say you start your Bitcoin journey. A lot of you guys watching this are in your mid 20s, late 20s or whatever, early 30s. You can buy Bitcoin now, and as long as you hold on to your Bitcoin, keep adding to it with your monthly income, increasing your stack over time, you'll be able to increase your mating pool. Whereas by holding traditional fiat currencies, usually you're going to, be stung by inflation and things like that. And as you get older and older and older, your dating pool is going to decrease by holding fiat currencies like the US dollar. But by having by being a Bitcoiner, your mating pool is going to increase over time. And then, of course, that's one of the main reasons why a lot of successful men that own Bitcoin stay single. They just want to maintain that purchasing power. They don't want risk of domestic violence. They don't want risk of getting into a sexless marriage. They don't want the risk of divorce, separation of assets, paying child support, alimony, visitation rights for children if there are any children that were, came into the marriage. So there's just too much risk. And that's what it is. Bitcoin is about reducing risk. It's not about putting your wealth in the trust of a third party, like a CEO of a stock like Apple, the Apple CEO Tim Cook, or the CEO of Tesla, Elon Musk. It's not about putting your money in the trust of a specific government fiat currency. you're putting your trust in the entire network of hundreds of millions of Bitcoiners who live all over the world, whether in the United States or China or Japan or South Korea or Botswana or Brazil or Canada, wherever. You're putting your trust in this network of hundreds of millions of people, just like you and me, who aren't necessarily gazillionaires and they're not necessarily politicians, but they're just good, average, hardworking people that want to put their money in a network that's limited to 21 million Bitcoin and that's trustworthy and all transactions are verified and it's a peer-to-peer network that can operate outside of any third party or any government or any bank. And that's it. So, if women want to get into long-term relationships and get married to Bitcoiners, a lot of these modern women are going to have to switch from a high time preference mindset to a low time preference mindset. That means, a lot of women are going to have to get away from this mindset of hurry up and get married so they can get divorced. Because in a lot of these marriages, unfortunately, the divorce is planned before the wedding. And that's, once again, a high time preference fiat mindset. So a lot of modern women should think about changing their mindset, switch from high time preference to low time preference. Another thing is, if you want to attract a successful man who owns Bitcoin, modern women should probably purchase Bitcoin themselves. Learn about Bitcoin. Learn about why so many successful men, whether it's Elon Musk or whether it's even Tim Cook, I believe the CEO of Apple, he mentioned he owned Bitcoin. Okay, you have a lot of people in Donald Trump's cabinet that own Bitcoin. Okay, there's been so many. Mark Cuban, he mentions cryptocurrencies and things like that. So there's so many successful men that have Bitcoin. A lot of modern women should think about studying Bitcoin and buying it themselves. And if you wanted to attract, obviously, if you wanted to attract a partner who's successful and has Bitcoin, it would probably help if you own Bitcoin yourself. And another thing that a lot of modern women need to do is they need to understand that by owning Bitcoin, you really increase your purchasing power over time substantially. So over the last 10 years, Bitcoin's gone up on average around 70 to 80% per year. And over the last 10 years, it's up 33,000%. So just be prepared for a relationship where your means and the way you spend money can really increase. So maybe if you're just in an average condo now and you're a Bitcoiner, well, in 5 to 10 years, you could be in a penthouse condo, okay? If you're living in an average home now, maybe in 5 to 10 years by holding Bitcoin, you could live in a mansion, okay? There's been many price predictions for Bitcoin. I truly believe that Bitcoin will be well over $1 million by 2030. And by 2035, I believe Bitcoin will be well over $10 million. So, a lot of successful men have kind of put those numbers into their brain and realized that they're going to be able to purchase so much more. So, if a woman wants to attract a successful guy who owns Bitcoin, she should probably, be the three F's: fit, fun, and feminine, right? So you're going to have to add value in the guy's life. And it's going to be hard to do that if you're like a lot of modern women that are overweight, have a lot of bad attitudes, trust issues, kids from a previous relationship, et cetera, et cetera. Fun, fit, fun, and feminine is like the three F's. That's a good place to start. That's probably the easiest way for a modern woman to attract a successful guy that owns Bitcoin. But until, a lot of guys see the benefits in getting into a long-term relationship or getting married, a lot of guys are just going to stay single simply because your purchasing power is going to increase. Even though you're going to age, your assets are going to increase, so you'll be able to attract younger women throughout the rest of your life. A prime example is Al Pacino. He was in his 80s and he fathered a child with a woman in her 20s. So as long as your purchasing power stays good, men can easily attract young, beautiful women in their 20s at age 40, 50, 60, 70, even 80 years old. And that's just something that a lot of people are going to have to come to grips with. Heavy Bitcoin is a game changer. It changes the game. It takes the power away from the banks and government and puts it on your side. Bitcoin is built for the average Joe. It's built for the average hardworking American or wherever you guys live. And if you embrace that, you'll have no problems attracting beautiful, young, beautiful women for the rest of your life. I can't imagine some of the women that have shown interest in me at age 38 that I would have had no chance of getting when I was even 28 all thanks to the power of Bitcoin, just the financial freedom and the peace of mind and the confidence that it brings that my money can't be debased or devalued. And it's really been a game changer. So I hope I kind of explained a lot of those things in this video. I'm going to kind of wrap things up now. If you guys enjoy my content, please subscribe to my channel and give this a thumbs up. For you guys out there that own Bitcoin, you guys consider yourselves successful in your career or whatever you do in life, let me know what you guys think. Why you are particularly staying single? It'll be really interesting to hear your input. So that's all I got until next time, guys. Take care.